As a psychologist who has spent years behind the closed doors of a therapy office, I've become a keeper of secrets. And let me tell you one of the biggest. Nearly everything men are culturally conditioned to believe about female desire is, at best, incomplete, and at worst, flat out wrong. What if I told you that her no tonight has less to do with you than you think, and that her yes begins not in the bedroom, but with the conversation you had over breakfast? Let's pull back the curtain. This isn't about mind games or unsolvable mysteries. This is about a different operating system, one that, once you understand it, can transform your entire relationship. Here are 10 truths about female desire, straight from scientific research and the candid confessions of countless women, that shock most men. She might have a higher sex drive than you, but society taught her to hide it. Let's start with the biggest myth of them all. Men are the gas pedals, women are the brakes. For years, the widespread belief, often supported by early research, was that men simply have higher sex drives due to testosterone. They're like an on-off switch, ready anytime, anywhere, while women need to be in the mood. But here's the truth I see every day. Many women have incredibly strong sex drives, sometimes even stronger than their male partners. The real difference isn't the drive itself, but how it's expressed. Women act on their sexual desires far less than men, not because the desire isn't there, but because they have been conditioned by society to keep it hidden. From a young age, women are taught that sex can be dirty or that expressing desire is slutty, while men are socialized to be open about their sexual wants and needs. This cultural programming creates a reality where a woman might be burning with desire internally, but feels she must appear demure or wait for the man to initiate. Furthermore, sex is infinitely more costly and risky for women, a biological reality true for any sexually reproducing species. The consequences of pregnancy and the historical power dynamics where men held more physical and socio-political power have shaped a female psychology that is more cautious. So, while her desire might be roaring, her socially trained brain is running a constant risk-benefit analysis that men rarely have to consider. The shock isn't that she doesn't want sex. It's that she has to navigate a minefield of social stigma and biological risk just to express it. Her desire doesn't have an on switch. It has a warm-up dial. This is perhaps the most crucial concept for any man to understand. Most men, about 75%, primarily experience what's called spontaneous desire. It feels like it comes out of nowhere. You could be working, driving, or watching TV, and suddenly you're in the mood. Because our culture often frames the male experience as the default, both men and women assume this is how desire is supposed to work for everyone. This leads to immense shame and confusion for women. In my office, a female client will often say, "I feel broken. I love him. I just never feel like doing it." She's not broken. She's normal. The science is clear. 70% of women hardly ever experience spontaneous desire. Instead, most women operate on responsive desire. This means for them, arousal precedes desire. Think of it this way. A man sees the pizza and wants it. A woman often needs to smell the garlic and cheese first, feel the warmth from the oven, and then she realizes she's hungry. For her, desire is a response to erotic stimuli, a sensual kiss, a steamy scene in a movie, an intimate conversation. She doesn't start out wanting sex, but as foreplay begins and she feels turned on, her responsive desire comes online. It's not that she doesn't want sex. It's that she needs a reason to want it, and that reason is often arousal itself. Your libido is more volatile than you think, and so is hers. Another pervasive myth is that men's sexual desire is stable and consistently high, while women's desire ebbs and flows dramatically with her mood, her cycle, and the social context. This idea of female erotic plasticity suggests that a woman's sexuality is uniquely flexible and responsive, while a man's is a constant biological force. Recent, more rigorous studies challenge this head-on. When researchers tracked desire moment to moment over several days, they found something stunning. There were no significant differences in the variability of men's and women's desire in the short term. Men's desire fluctuated just as much as women's. It was impacted by the same things: stress, tiredness, and feelings of closeness to their partner. The assumption that men have a stable, unwavering sex drive is simply not supported by the data when you look at it day to day. Men, just like women, have moments of high and low interest. However, over the very long term, we're talking years, women's desire does show more variability. This is largely due to major life events that disproportionately affect women, like pregnancy, childbirth, and the postpartum period, which can cause steep declines in desire that men don't typically experience. But in the short term, from one day to the next, your desire is just as much of a moving target as hers is. She's not just listening to your words. She's building a case file. When a man and woman assess each other's attractiveness, their brains are doing wildly different things. For men, attraction is often immediate and visual. Brain scans show that when men see an attractive woman, the visually oriented parts of their brain light up. It's a quick, almost reflexive judgment based on cues to fertility and health, like youth and physical appearance. For women, it's a slower, more deliberate process. When a woman sees an attractive man, the part of her brain that gets activated is the one responsible for memory. She isn't just looking at you. She's cross-referencing. She's recalling what you said last week, how you treated the waiter at dinner, how you talk about your mother, and your consistency over time. Her brain is wired to build a comprehensive profile to determine if you are reliable and trustworthy. This explains the saying, men fall in love with their eyes, and women fall in love with their ears. A fabulous conversation with a man who isn't conventionally handsome can be far sexier to a woman than a handsome man who is dull or disrespectful. This also explains why women tend to take longer to fall in love. They are collecting data. It also clarifies why a woman with negative past experiences with men might say, all men are the same. Her brain is pattern matching based on her memory files, and it takes a lot of new, positive data to overwrite the old evidence. She wants resources, but it's not just about your bank account. Let's be direct. From an evolutionary perspective, one of the primary things a woman desires in a long-term partner is resources. For hundreds of thousands of years, a woman's survival and that of her children depended on choosing a mate who could provide and protect. This deep-seated instinct hasn't vanished. Studies across all cultures show that women consistently prioritize financial prospects, ambition, and social status in a mate more than men do. But this is where most men get it wrong. They hear resources and think it's a purely transactional desire for money. In modern society, the concept of resources has expanded dramatically. While financial stability is certainly a component of security, she is seeking a man who is generous with all of his resources. These now include emotional resources, your ability to be understanding, kind, patient, and emotionally stable. Can you make her laugh when life is tough? Time and attention. A willingness to spend quality time together, listen to her, and be present. Support. Actively supporting her personal and professional growth. Honesty and trust. Being a man she can rely on, who is consistent and keeps his promises. Intelligence and competence. A man with a sharp mind and the ability to navigate the world effectively is seen as having more potential to acquire resources of all kinds. A man who is rich but emotionally stingy, unfaithful, or unsupportive is, in her brain's calculus, a poor provider of the resources that truly matter for long-term happiness and security. She wants a man who has resources, yes, but more importantly, a man who is willing to share them with her and their future family. For her, foreplay starts in the morning. If a woman's desire is responsive and requires the right context to emerge, then what is that context? The two essential ingredients are low stress and erotic sensation, and for many women, the first is far more important than the second. Our bodies have two competing nervous systems, the fight-or-flight system and the rest and digest system. Sex, digestion, and relaxation are all governed by the rest and digest branch. When we're stressed, the fight-or-flight branch takes over, shutting down all non-essential functions to prepare for a perceived threat. You can't feel desire when your body thinks it's being chased by a lion. For many women, that lion is the endless to-do list. Worries about the kids, unresolved arguments, body image insecurities, or the stress of a demanding job. When a man doesn't help with household chores, it's not just about the dishes. It's another stressor added to her mental load, keeping her fight-or-flight system activated and her desire switched off. This is why foreplay for her doesn't start with a touch in the bedroom. It starts with you unloading the dishwasher without being asked. It's the supportive text you send in the middle of the day. It's the way you handle a conflict with kindness instead of defensiveness. These actions reduce her stress, activate her rest and digest system, and create the safe, secure emotional space where her responsive desire can finally emerge later that evening. Emotional cheating can be worse than a one-night stand. Here's a fundamental difference in how men and women often define infidelity, rooted in our evolutionary past. A man's greatest fear, subconsciously, has always been paternity uncertainty, investing his resources in another man's child. Therefore, for men, sexual infidelity is often perceived as the ultimate betrayal. A woman's greatest fear is the abandonment and diversion of resources. If her partner forms a deep emotional bond with another woman, she risks losing his commitment, protection, and support for her and her children. This is why, when a woman discovers her partner has cheated, her first question is often not, "Did you sleep with her?" but, "Do you love her?" The male brain is more adept at separating sex and love. For many men, sex can be a purely physical act. The female brain, however, tends to intertwine them. For women, sex often reinforces the emotional bond, and the thought of her partner sharing that emotional intimacy with someone else can feel like a far greater threat than a meaningless physical encounter. Even if a man insists a physical affair was just for sex, a woman may never be able to accept that because her own brain doesn't operate that way. For her, fidelity is about the promise that you will continue to share your most valuable resources, your time, attention, and emotional commitment, exclusively with her. She wants you to support her growth. Not just her. A healthy relationship is a platform for personal development, and women crave a partner who champions their evolution. This goes beyond simply being supportive in a passive sense. She desires a partner who actively encourages her to pursue her goals, take on new challenges, and grow as an individual. This is a core component of women's empowerment, which is about having the freedom and ability to make life-determining decisions. This could mean supporting her ambition to get a master's degree, encouraging her to take up a new hobby she's nervous about, or respecting her need for independence. When her partner sees her professional and personal development as a shared win rather than a threat, it builds immense trust and satisfaction. This is particularly crucial for married professional women, who often face a second shift of domestic duties on top of their careers, creating significant work-life conflict. A spouse who not only understands these pressures, but actively works to alleviate them by sharing household responsibilities and providing emotional support is one of the most powerful drivers of her life satisfaction. She doesn't want to be with someone who just loves her as she is today. She wants someone who is excited about who she is becoming tomorrow. She needs you to be a man, not another girlfriend. This is a delicate but critical point, as women have increasingly sought partners who are emotionally intelligent and communicative. Some men have become confused, believing they need to think and act exactly like a woman to make her happy. They try to talk endlessly about feelings without purpose or conclusion, a process that often feels unnatural and stressful because it goes against their typical problem-solving nature. While a woman absolutely needs open communication, empathy, and emotional intimacy, she doesn't want you to lose the essence of your masculine energy. She still desires a man who can be a rock, someone who is decisive, provides a sense of security, and can stand up for her and their family. The key is not to think like a woman, but to understand a woman. It's about active listening, validating her feelings without judgment, and showing empathy. When she tells you about a problem at work, your instinct might be to immediately offer a solution. But often, she just wants you to listen and say, "That sounds really tough. I'm sorry you had to deal with that." That is validation. It shows you're on her team. She wants your empathy and strength, not a carbon copy of her own emotional process. Her no tonight isn't a rejection of you. It's a reflection of her state. For a man who primarily experiences spontaneous desire, a partner's lack of sexual interest can feel like a deep personal rejection. If he wants sex out of the blue, and she doesn't, his mind can easily jump to conclusions. She doesn't find me attractive anymore. Understanding responsive desire changes everything. Her lack of spontaneous interest is not a reflection of her desire for you, but a reflection of her current state. Is she stressed? Tired? Is there an unresolved conflict between you? Is she feeling disconnected? A woman with responsive desire can be deeply in love with her partner and find him incredibly attractive, yet still not feel like having sex because the conditions aren't right. Acknowledging that desire fluctuates for both men and women, and that women's desire is often responsive, can be incredibly liberating. It depersonalizes sexual rejection. Her "no, not right now" isn't a verdict on your marriage or your attractiveness. It's an invitation to troubleshoot the context. It's an opportunity to ask, what do you need to feel relaxed and connected? Shifting from seeing her lack of desire as a personal rejection to seeing it as a contextual problem is one of the most profound and relationship-saving shifts a man can make. In the end, what women desire isn't a secret code or an impossible puzzle. It's a call for a deeper form of connection, one that is built on understanding, security, mutual respect, and the recognition that her inner world operates on a different but equally valid rhythm. The men who are willing to learn that rhythm are the ones who are truly shocked, not by how complicated women are, but by how simple it can be to create a passionate, fulfilling, and lasting bond when you finally understand the music she's dancing to.